to today's chat with Laura. The two of us are going to continue on with our talk series on ceremonial grade cacao. What is it? Today we're talking about sacred reciprocity and harmony. So this is another invitation to please ask us any questions while I'm getting Laura up in this box, send us a DM, and we'll extend this talk series. It's getting quite a bit of traction and some interest. We've already had some questions come through, so we've already got another topic to add to the end of our series. And when we're looking at ceremonial grade cacao, just a summary of what we talked about last time is that there isn't currently any association grading this or protecting the term. So it's a little bit of like the Wild West out there. So we're just here to share what we know and to educate and learn together. Both of us have been working with cacao for quite some time, and we're very passionate about it. So we take a lot of time to actually do our own research and have discussions like this off Zoom and off Instagram. All right. Other topics we're going to be looking at the next few weeks is the actual farming practices, the processing from bean to bar, and then also the social impact and responsibility piece. Hello, Laura.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. I can't actually see you on my screen, but do you see the two panels as usual?
Yes, I do.
Okay. It saves like that, so that's fine. I'm just talking to myself at the moment. Hello and welcome. So I gave a little introduction. Today we are continuing with our topic of ceremonial grade cacao and what is it? That there isn't currently any body monitoring and protecting this term, so we're just going to give some information. Last week we introduced our 4 topics, and today we're going to go a little deeper into the one which we are titling Sacred Reciprocity and Harmony. So I'm going to light a candle here, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask you to introduce what you are passionate about in this particular line of topic, and then we can take it from there.
Yes, so reciprocity with land and people, it's one of the main things I think that for me makes ceremonial grade cacao. So I'm very passionate about this in general, and because also it's the best mirror to look into our own world and our own lives, and actually our day-to-day living as well, how we earn reciprocity with ourselves and with others.
Yeah. Cool. So that's exactly what we're going to be covering today. Going to be looking at the reciprocity with the land, reciprocity with people in the land, and then reciprocity with people and people. So Laura, perhaps you would like to go a little bit deeper into the part with the land.
Yeah,
what
so
does it mean to have reciprocity with the land?
So when we think about reciprocity, means we know, like just a quick word, like there's a giving and taking in the world, right, in our lives. So this also carries out in our relationship with the earth and with its creatures, right? So that because I've had the conversation about protection recently a lot. How are we to protect a term that's not even ours because it's not indigenous? Who are we to try to protect something? And I want to say this because I used to say for a long, I still do, for all these years, especially since living in Iceland, that we don't need to protect nature, right? Because nature is very clever. Nature can send us hurricanes and floods, volcanoes, earthquakes, all of the elements to destroy us. It's very, very easy for nature to destroy us. But nature is like, I know my power. I don't need to use it. But if you poke me and poke me again and poke me more and more and more and more and more, at some point I'm going to be like this, like fierce, raging mother, being like, you better stop biting my nipple whilst I'm breastfeeding you. That sort of thing, I think is Mother Earth or nature, this planet that we live on. So she doesn't have to prove her strength, but we better respect her and not take her for granted. And as Westerners, as we lost the connection with nature, we built these houses, we built them walls, we kind of like disconnected from the outside. We don't listen to her, we don't listen to ourselves anymore. We tend to exploit this planet. And this is something which I'm very passionate about, the reciprocity piece, especially when it comes to cacao, because cacao is being brought to us humans to re-establish the harmony between us and nature, and therefore open our hearts to acknowledge our inner nature. And so whilst we're doing this, and if we want to be in integrity with this sentence, so I'm also speaking to all of you that uses this sentence, uses the myth of cacao, uses the heart opening thing. If you want to use this in integrity, you have to start with looking where your cacao comes from. And the first part is, where is it birthed? Where is it being tended to? Where is it being breastfed? The countries that it comes to. And is it really in a natural environment? And I'm talking not like the industrial chocolate making that is usually monocrop, monoculture farm, where they just plant trees, and they do that with avocado, they do that with corn, with grain, with everything that we consume. As soon as it becomes a trend or important or cheap, then the mass producers, or our world in the Western capitalized world, they plant it in monoculture everywhere. So because that is cheaper, it's quicker, and they GMO modify it, whatever, right? So that's one thing. Is the cacao growing in a natural habitat, or is it forced to grow a certain way that we humans want it to do, right? Because of course it's harder for us to harvest it. There's more effort that goes into harvesting even like processing the Criollo bean. There's more effort in going into the wilderness and into the rainforest, and not only have cacao trees, because cacao is in its nature inherently a very reciprocal plant, because cacao grows with other plants such as coffee trees, cacao trees, they kind of grow together, and its roots and its grow deep in the mycelium network, and its leaves, the cacao tree leaves, are actually, when they accumulate on the soil, they create this very nutrient dense and like fantastic fertile soil for other insects and mycelium, and therefore also like mushrooms, for example, that then therefore help the cacao tree to get all its nutrients, to get its strength, and the animals as well. Cacao is a fruit that needs animals and humans to be distributed, to be its seed to grow, and so to flower again. And so that's my little piece about the first question. If you want to get ceremonial grade cacao, is to ask, how is it birthed? Where, in which country, and in which environment is it birthed?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So just to make a note on that, we are going to dive deeper into this particular topic, looking at farming practices, and we'll cover a whole lot of this. So some people might go, oh, what's monoculture? And what's mycelium network? And what does it mean that cacao is supposed to, grow in a certain way? So we're going to go into that in our next chat, actually. So watch the space for more depth with that. I want to bring it back to the human space, but still link this into sacred reciprocity with the land. It's the understanding that we are not separate from, and you already touched on this, a lot of the problems that we have in our human space nowadays is because of this disconnect that happened. And cacao is coming in now a lot around connecting us back, reconnecting us back to what we already know, our true nature, like you were saying. And it's to remember, again, all this remembering and reconnecting, it's to remember that we are part of, we're not separate from, and we don't need to heal nature. We are part of nature. And when we get too much, what you were saying, when you poke, Mother Nature will come and go, okay, enough now, humans, we'll just create another ice age or another a natural disaster, just so you can quieten down there, because you're getting a little out of balance for this entire cycle and system that we are all living in harmony. But you guys, you haven't really been living in harmony because you've forgotten your place. So that's kind of like my way of just describing it in a bit of a crass, crass way.
And the thing is also, I wanted to point out here as well, this is what I mean also with the reciprocity with us, right? So it comes back to our lives, because even nature wouldn't even need to send us any nature catastrophe, because we're really good at destroying our home environment ourselves, which means there's people that are looking to move to Mars. I'm just saying, that's crazy. They actually want to escape this world because the resources are getting tight, because we humans are very good at exploiting our own planet, which feeds us. It's very stupid what we're doing. It's not clever.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
absolutely. And that's a whole nother.
For us this, I'm just putting this back. This is why it's important.
Mm.
The first thing should be your concern of where you get your things from, your food, because
Yes.
it's your own survival that
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, exactly. If you have to take that egocentric approach, it's actually for our unique survival as humans, as a species, that we do have to kind of care, even if it's like a pretend care and a pretend reconnect. But if we start to look a bit deeper, just for some of those are kind of like struggling with this idea of really authentically being part of something and reconnecting back into this world. A topic that's very, very close to my heart in what I teach, and I know with you as well, Laura, but maybe it's just a different terminology that you have. But it's the idea that we need to remember our animism, our animistic roots. And animism is basically just the understanding that we live in a world that is animate, it is ensouled. Everything has a soul or a spirit, just depending on your different understanding of the words. And we're not above anything else in the cycle of life. We're not above. It's not a linear thing. Mother Nature is a cycle. You think about like just the earth, how she spins, the sun, the moon, everything, the seasons, plants, and everything has their friends, and they need to cohabitate together. They need to find a harmony to survive. And that's unfortunately at the moment what we're not doing as humans. We're not finding a harmony, and we're not then able to survive on this planet. So therefore we're looking at somewhere else to go and colonize. So it's about remembering that we are part of that. We have a soul just like everything else out there, the plants, the stones, the soil, the water, all of that. So when we approach anything, it's with this respect. And that's the idea. So it might be a nice practice to get into, just to start this kind of remembering muscle, this link back, to go do some offerings, to say thank you, to take a flower, to go and sing to the water, whatever you have time for in your day, and whatever kind of feels less awkward for you, just as a starting point. And that will help link us back into opening our eyes again to, wow, there's more than just humans and me and my life. And then this kind of reciprocity becomes a little bit more authentic, where we really are living in this way every day with everything that's around us, not just humans. Very important. That's my piece on that. I want to move us on to the next point of this. The spiritual connection with the land and offerings. I've kind of already introduced that a bit. So I'm going to get Laura back on here. I was having my whole little ramble around sacred reciprocity. Let's see when she's back. Okay, invite sent. So that idea of, are you back?
Yes,
cool.
Sorry.
Right. All good. So I was just speaking about the sacred reciprocity, and how even if that's not an authentic thing for us yet, on our journey, we can just start to do some kind of practices that will help link us back into that kind of stream of flow within life. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, around offerings and just having the spiritual connection with all of life around us, not just cacao. Obviously, it'll come into that.
I would just again bring it back to the basics of course you can give offerings and go to places, but that often can also feel a bit performative, which is not bad. Performance is actually good, it's part of ritual. But when you feel like, I'd rather, instead of people thinking, oh, I need to do step A, invite the elements, step B, place a crystal on my altar, step C, go out and pour some water, or cacao on the grass, and then I'm done, and then I'm relieved of my sins, kind of thing. I'd rather I'd rather have you not do all of this, but actually look at your own life and think, like, how are you treating your friends, your family, the neighbor, the people at the cash point. So if you're living in a big city, or if you live actually out in nature, you might most likely already know that you need to respect your environment, because if you're snowed in, you don't have any help from outside. So how can you tend to your garden? How can you tend to your, even like your machines, like your car? Like, how can you tend to everything that keeps your life afloat? So and this is the whole piece of realizing how important community and connection is. So we've been trained to do it all ourselves, but when we actually then get sick, we know how important it is to have support and have help. And that's how we thrive in diversity. The whole idea of the village was never just people that help you in a certain time. It's a diverse, or like just your friends, right? It's not, the village is not just your friends. The village is the grandparents, the village is the kids, the village is the neighbors, and even neighboring tribes sometimes. And so same with cacao, you've got all the plants, the mycelia, the creatures, even like in the Mayans would even go as far and say the jade deposits in Guatemala are very crucial to the energy of cacao, and the energy of the jaguar and the quetzal and all these beings that they in their cosmovision and animism deem energetically important to play a role into this whole system. And so do we play a role in our family system, even psychologically look at IFS, internal family systems, like literally can do family constellations. And just look at this, look at your environment and how you are practicing reciprocity. I think that's something that I would bring.
Beautiful. And I think because we are largely, as our modern Western culture, been disconnected for so long from a particular cosmovision, we're still figuring that out. We go look at like the Mayans, we go look at some of the, where I am living, there's lots of amazing cosmovision still held by the people in Africa, of the indigenous people that live here. When I travel to Bali to source the cacao there and to connect back to that land, there's a particular cosmovision there with the Balinese Hindu people. And so all over the world, there's going to be these particular cosmovisions, and largely they do speak about the same thing, but it's not to get caught up in those little details, just to tick boxes, like Laura was saying, It's not just about putting the crystal on your altar and having to face a certain direction and then having to have X amount of grams of your cacao every day and do so many minutes of meditation. It really is about this deeper heartfelt, again, that's why we love working with cacao, this heartfelt connection to all of life around us. And we might understand that a bit easier in the beginning with other humans. How we want to be treated, that's how we should be treating others. And then that's a start. And then we can just drop a bit deeper into, well, we are so held by the entire ecosystem, by the entire natural world. We are absolutely part of it, and we rely on it for our survival. So yeah, it's a massive topic. But I think, like you said, Laura, just to come back to the basics, for each of us to slot into what is important to me in my life when I'm living from the heart. How do I want to be treated? How do I want to see the world going forwards? Do I want it to be with more connection, more community, more love, more support, more nurturing spaces? Or do I want it to kind of go on the trajectory that I see out there on the media a lot, and people moving to other planets and stars and finding more disconnection? So I think that is also a personal take. But it's to find something that is rooted for you in the essence of life, and to find a sacred way of relating to that daily, more than just daily. Come back to that throughout your day. And the idea of making offerings as well, like you say, we can't just go do this and tick boxes. And we talk about having a kind of a ritual, and there's a performance to that is important. But sometimes they can be empty rituals. So it's important that we still do things, but there's an energy behind it that is authentic. So we're in integrity in that space. Yeah. And I would actually rather not do like a particular ritual if I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it on the surface level.
Yeah. And also really all the tools they are all tools, right? But you can bypass all of them. If you actually, the more important thing is being in your presence and in your gratitude and in your connection. If you are not, then obviously get these tools that help you come into resonance of some sort. Sometimes like little rituals, like especially with cacao, I think for most of us it started with cacao. We realized, oh my gosh, this self-care ritual of drinking cacao and coming back to ourselves, starting to listen to our body, like, wow, that means something to me now. And then over time we realize, oh, we can do this without cacao. Actually, we inherently are able to communicate with ourselves and open our hearts, no matter if we drink cacao or not. Cacao is just such a beautiful reminder and helps us to come into a place, because she's joyful and she connects with all of us, no matter where we are and what we do. And this is why I love cacao, and I think she's a great medicine for this world, because she's a bridge for so many of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the end, when we think about, that's why I'm so strongly, like in my training, for example, I don't teach any like Mayan traditions, or also are very firmly talking about finding your own roots rather than trying to reach to other cultures unless you are immersed in them, and we are creating culture, so there's another topic there. But I'm quite firm of like rooting in your environment, right? And finding something that works here, and also consider your cultural context, consider your societal context, because the whole idea, like we want to give, like the indigenous people, some, not all, but some indigenous cultures, they give offerings to cacao, as you said, Fran, right? So, but that doesn't mean that suddenly when a Westerner comes and colonizes and buys his cacao farm and starts to give offerings, it is the same. It's not, because the indigenous cultural context is a complete different one. They grow up with these lands, they grow up with these plants, they grow up with a completely different idea of how to live. And this is not something that we can simply copy and then we are there. It's a whole feeling, an embodiment of sorts that we have to respect and have to be patient with ourselves until we develop that again. But I do think we will take some more time to be there.
And it's hard to bridge the understanding of all of that into our modern context for our individual lives, given our context. Context is always so important when we work in ceremony, for example. It's set and setting, and there's the context piece there. So it's really important that we know where cacao comes from, the origins of it, the history, its story. It's got a beautiful story that has a lot of shadow in there as well, but it's important that we know that. And that when we are sourcing our cacao, no matter where it comes from the globe, that it still has there's certain questions we're going to give you a little later that you can maybe just start to consider and ask a practitioner or supplier of cacao. Is there a sacred reciprocity with the land in general, with Mother Nature in general? Doesn't necessarily have to be with just the cacao trees, because maybe that particular offering just to cacao is a very particular way that comes from a certain tradition, because they link that into their cosmovision, and we're going to have lived in with those people for generations to really understand what it means to be doing that particular offering. But it doesn't mean that we can't go and give an offering and be respectful and be living in a way that is more harmonious. And this does link me into the last point I want to bring up for us. But do you want to say something on that?
I think it's bridging to the reciprocity with humans, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because
exactly.
This is something like, if we can't, like, just physically can't make an offering to the cacao tree because we are not in the lands of cacao, and also making offerings is also a whole funny topic, because I live in a place where there's loads of offerings giving in Glastonbury, right, in the UK, or any sacred sites. You see all them trees with beautiful ribbons on, and it's such a great example, because I see every month or so, I see people coming to these places to take off the ribbons. Now you might ask, why is this? This was a sacred wish of someone, and they put an offering with and I don't know, like what are they called? The yellow flowers, daffodils, that are now blooming everywhere. So there's a funny thing. Daffodils, for example, they've been offered to the white spring, cause a big problem because they poison the water. So when the dogs drink the water, they can die. Ribbons that are made out of plastic hung on trees. Great intention, looks beautiful, but actually suffocates the tree. He can't grow. So that is such a great illustration of how our Western society, I know the intent is good, but the intent is not all. There's context to this quote. I know everyone says intent is all, but it's not. Not if you have to be aware of the context. No. So
the context,
it's certain. What offering do you give? I know, I love that you want to give an offering. That's amazing, right? But then what is it that you're giving? Is it biodegradable? Does it make sense? And if you can't give an offering, like I said, if you're not in the land of the cacao tree, then can you give an offering via the money you spend on a certain cacao product that is good origin, to give the offering of money to the people. Obviously, then making sure that which brand you choose depends where the money goes to, and there's still a lack of transparency out there in the world. But I hope these conversations aid in that.
Yeah, and maybe we should have a whole another chat just on offerings, because
and I think we should
so
have, we should have.
We're just going to carry on and on with these chats. It's awesome. Chats with Fran and Laura, because it, again, it can just be a bit of an empty space. It's the energy behind it. So it's really important that there is an action and a mental space met. The somatic and the mental intention. Those meet, and then there's a bit of magic that's created from that. But it's more important that there's an energy behind that is fueling that. And I would often just give this, and I'm going to just share it anyways, because now that we're on it, it can be a way of not having to have a physical offering put out that's going to harm the land. And it's just saying thank you to anything that's green in nature around you, because it goes through photosynthesis by exhaling, because in our exhale is carbon dioxide. And that's what the plants need for their feeding, to grow, for their energy. So they take that carbon dioxide in that we are giving out as a byproduct. It's harmful to us at a certain level. And in return, they're giving us the oxygen as they breathe out. So we are then taking that in as we inhale. So just sitting, even if you're not next to a plant, but it's a beautiful practice to do, to actually go sit next to a plant, and just breathe the circular breathing with it, and just say thank you. I'm giving of my exhale back to you. I'm giving of my life force. And in return, there's life force given. And it's a really beautiful practice. And one more thing, here in Africa, there's Southern Africa, there's many rituals, many ceremonies that happen all the time throughout the rites of passage in life. And whenever, in the more traditional ways, whenever something has to be taken from the land that is of a plant that's living, there will be some spit offered over that, like a plaster to the wound. So it's cut or it's torn, and there's that. And then when a tree is planted, there's spit given, and it's an indication, or that there can often be blood offerings as well. But it's this indication that we are literally giving of our life force.
Yeah, we do
through
this
spit or blood or breath.
Hair. Like I know, like that's what I sometimes do when I pick a branch, or my son picked a branch.
I would argue that that's a daily practice. You can be doing that as you walk down the street, or here we tend to drive quite a bit in South Africa if we have a car, and you can just be sitting in the traffic or driving or walking down the road and just observing there's a tree and go, thank you. You don't have to do that with your hand, but you're imagining that's what's happening. So you're constantly staying connected, and you're rewiring your brain to be part of, not separate from. And I think that's the biggest piece for me. We are part of.
And so, communication, right? In communication and community. Like my partner, he does this really sweet thing where he's a hairdresser and he's got this amazing hair, like ridiculous. And so we've got loads of hair in our hairbrushes, and every time he puts so that was in our previous apartment, he would take the hair out of the hairbrush, he would form it into a ball and put it on the windowsills, because we had a tree outside, and the birds would take it to build their nests with. And this is such as, for me, that was so eye-opening. I was like, that is so clever. Of course, like how beautiful. And it's these little things that I feel can be very, very beautiful. And you're right, it's whatever it is, it's so simple as a breath, but this reminder of we are communicating, and gardeners know this, people that garden, like they usually know. But also, and this then also goes to people, right? It's that what we do with each other, how we communicate, how we talk to each other, how we care for each other. And so there's people, like we said, even that we might not understand their indigenous ways or their cultures, but they have their understanding in their environment with cacao specifically. So we can tend to them, and we can help them to thrive.
And from the people that are actually working with the soil, with the land, for me, that piece of bridging in people to people care and respect is from those people all the way to us sitting here with our cups today. All the people that have been part of that process and that chain of supply, you can call it, from soil to cup. What is the relationship between those people there, then those people there, then those people there, then it's all very well to go, oh yes, the farmers and the land, there's this respect. And then when we are serving cacao in ceremony or drinking it for ourselves or sharing with our friends, now those are two edges of the spectrum. What about the middle piece here? Is where the cacao beans then go to be pressed. Is there a harmonious work environment and a care for each other in that small little room, you know, the small factory? And then from there it goes to be packaged, and you know, and there it goes to the couriers, and from there it goes, you know, there's so many people involved in this, and
you have to
as
make
much
sure
as
that
possible.
you're not shouting to the postman, basically, if he delivers too late. Like
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, in South Africa, you know, those that do receive things from other countries, you'll know that you probably have to use DHL as one of the big ones, just because at least then it gets to your door. Doesn't get lost somewhere. You know, it's automated. It's a part of the process for me that's a little like disconnected. But then there still be people that arrive to my home with the boxes of the cacao. And I'm like, thank you so much. Can I make you some tea? I mean, I would offer them some cacao, but they're very busy. So can I give you some water? Please come in. And I'm take your shoes off though, please. And this freaky woman, take your shoes off while you're delivering the boxes. But it's to actually just meet people from the heart. And sure, they're busy, you know, the signed papers, they've got to get going. But they, you know, often I just notice that little moment of, we're actually being acknowledged. That's cool. Not just a delivery guy. So it's all these little ways that we can just try in our own immediate environment to be respectful, to be in harmony, and that'll go out into the rest of our lives then. And then hopefully, you know, the parts of the chain that we can't really control, or we can maybe try, if after this conversation you've realized, ooh, I don't think my cacao is harmonious at any point, and there's not any respect, or I don't know, I don't know who to ask. It's such a big industry. Then maybe you need to change your supplier or rethink these things. And that's the whole idea. That's the spirit of this conversation that we started up last week, is to just put a little bit of light onto what is largely a bit of a strange territory at the moment, so that you can then be empowered to go and make your own decisions in this space.
Yeah, and this is it. It's really a strange territory because it's words, and you know how actions speak louder than words, and at the moment, especially with social media, we mainly see words. So we see the end of this spectrum. We see the social media aspect of it, the Western aspect. We see what, and on the website, right, we see what the Westerner has written usually. And so it goes really to our discernment again of like, is there something off? Is there actually something, does it feel weird, but I'm just tempted by the beautiful words or the beautiful pictures, and it looks all so serene and so magical, and they use exactly the words I want to hear, like ceremony and blessings and whatnot. And then come back to yourself, like, is this actually your need for it to be special, or are you not willing to go the extra mile and find out more? Like, as soon as there's something that you feel like, oh, that's off, like I just invite you to go further.
Cool. And I feel at this point, just to contextualize, speaking of context, what this is all about, and I feel to do this at the end of every chat before we just give those few questions that you can start considering over the next week. So to contextualize these conversations we're having, and they're conversations, is to try and just bring a little bit of light into this space on ceremonial cacao. And it's not to shame anyone who's working with cacao in a way that we don't work with cacao. Laura and I have been called to work in a very sacred way. So for us, it's very important that we try source cacao that is in its highest integrity from, like we said, soil to cup. But there's a whole bunch of categories that we're talking about over the course of this series, because we can't do it all in one chat. Today we're talking about sacred reciprocity and harmony, but that's not just with the land, it's also the people engaging with each other, and not just with the land as farmers or cacao growing communities, but everyone. And hopefully this energy goes out into the world with everything we do. Respect and reciprocity and harmony. And if you're finding after some of these chats that we're having, you're like, wow, okay, my eyes are now open. I haven't actually been using ceremonial grade cacao. and I'm such a bad person. No, you're not. You just didn't know. And here are some questions now that you can consider. Laura, is there anything before I put the questions
go
out
ahead.
that you would like to?
I think
All right. So it's basically in summary of what we've just been speaking about. So 3 questions, and these will be in the text under the recording here as well. So when asking your buyer, your supplier of cacao, that they said ceremonial grade, just ask them, is the spirit of cacao or Mother Nature revered? Right? Is there
and where
some kind of consideration? Hey?
And I would add here, who reveres Mother Nature or the spirit of cacao?
All right.
Because to me, it wouldn't be enough if it was just the white man that then said, yes, of course, we honor the spirit. We totally work with the spirit all the time. It's like, yeah, but I mean, you know, the cacao growing culture. Yeah.
Yes. I would like to say, I would like the yes to be there with every single person in that supply chain, but that might not be possible. I just mentioned the DHL guys that don't even know what's in the boxes. But yes, the people that are actively working, tending to the soil, growing the cacao, harvesting the cacao, and then doing that bit of processing to get it into the form that we call paste. I would like that. There's some kind of a resonance.
And awareness as well. And
awareness.
What they are creating in that they know that's special for us as well. Yeah.
Right. So that's not a, let's put that into a one question sentence. You seem to be very good at this, condensing it. How would you put that into one question?
All right. So is Mother Nature or the spirit of cacao or both considered and revered from the people that actually farm and process the cacao in the lands of its origin?
It's a very long question sentence, but I would have done it like 5 times longer. Thank you. Okay, so that's question number 1. Some consideration and reverence to Mother Nature from the cacao growing people. Then the second one, is there a spiritual connection to the land and our offerings given? Now, again, we can go into a whole another chat around the offerings, and we just kind of highlighted a few things. But it's not just enough to go, oh yes, Mother Nature, okay, she's out there and we consider her, even if you're a farmer. It's actually that there's this living, this spiritual connection, this everyday living as part of. So it's not just with the farming practices, with the cacao to tick a few boxes, again, for a label. It's a way of life. So spiritual connection with the land. And as a result, offerings naturally tend to come out of that. But it's not that, it's just these empty rituals of offerings given. Want to add anything to that?
That's great.
Okay. So spiritual connection with the land. And then, is there respect and harmony between the people involved in the whole chain of supply, from soil to cup? Is there respect and harmony with all the people involved,
and the
from soil to cup?
Land and the creatures. Yeah, I like that. Respect and harmony.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so respect and harmony. It's a big topic. We were trying to do this in 20 minutes, but once again, you know, we just there's so much to say on just one little point here. We are going to be talking next week about farming practices. The next talk, we're going to be looking at the actual processing of the beans to get our ceremonial grade cacao paste. And then we're going to be looking at social responsibility and impact. Now, we've started to touch on a few of these things anyways, because they're all interlinked. We're just trying to find like cleaner ways of talking about one-ish thing at a time.
Yeah.
I think we did pretty well so far. Well done, us. Any final words, Laura?
No. Again, just as always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment, to send them to us here in the chat or comment on the video. Yeah, so we can dive into those if there's specifics.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fran, as always.
Thank you so much, sister. And thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week. Much love. Bye.